Welcome back to Beginner English Speaking TV. I'm Mike, and I've been teaching English for over 25 years, having been online since 2007. That's quite some time. And you know what keeps me going? It's seeing my students learn and succeed, and watching other dedicated educators with the same passion. Today, we are tackling some persistent myths that can hold learners back. A myth is an idea that some people believe to be true, but in fact, it is not. Our goal is to dispel these myths, to prove them wrong, and make those learning shadows disappear. We're drawing on the experiences of dedicated educators and successful English language learners, all non-native speakers who have already attained a high level of proficiency. Their journeys demonstrate that fluency is absolutely achievable. Take, for example, Natalie, who is originally from Brazil. She started studying English as a mandatory subject in middle school back in 2005, but she intentionally started focusing in 2011. She recounts how she would watch lots of YouTube videos, write down new words, and actively try to listen and repeat sentences, acting just like a parrot, copying everything. She improved because the more she watched and practiced, the better she got. Ilona, from Ukraine, started studying over 2 decades ago when she was 10 years old. Even now, as a non-native English teacher, she continues to improve by listening to different podcasts, watching Netflix, talking to her English-speaking friends, and working on her pronunciation. We also have Ivan Cristapel, also from Brazil, who started learning English as a toddler, and now at age 40, he's been studying for about 37 or 38 years. He's immersed in the language daily as he teaches listening and speaking in an ESL program. In his free time, he also likes to read, listen to music, watch movies, and even study grammar. Daniela, an online teacher originally from Italy, never really stopped learning after middle school, continuing all the way through high school and university. As an English lover and teacher, she uses a whole repertoire of grammar books, vocabulary resources, and collocation guides. As a student, she watches videos on YouTube and Instagram, films, reads books in English, and participates in English clubs. And Chelsea, who moved from South Korea to the United States at 17, quickly realized there was real English to be learned beyond the textbook version she knew. Her process is straightforward. Pay attention when others speak, take note of interesting things, and then try to use or mimic those learned things in her next conversation. She watches TED Talk speakers or other good communicators, figures out why they are effective, and then tries to copy them. What I love about their responses is the collective understanding that they have not stopped learning. Even as a native speaker, I constantly encounter new slang or academic words. No one's English is ever truly perfect.
Myth 2. You have to lose your accent or achieve perfect English to be successful. This myth creates so much unnecessary anxiety. The idea that you need perfect English or need to lose your accent to be considered fluent. Ilona told us that fluency and accent are 2 different things, and your accent is your identity. She believes it's actually good to have an accent, and having one doesn't make people think you are less fluent. Another expert, Prof. Lau, offered an inspiring thought, saying that an accent is a sign of bravery. He advises that you don't have to worry about losing your accent because it won't go away for most people. Instead, focus on pronouncing clearly. He reminded us that accent is very different from mispronunciation. Chelsea initially felt embarrassed by her accent when she first came to the US. But after meeting many excellent communicators from various countries, all with strong accents, she learned that the true measure of success is your ability to communicate and be understood by others, not your accent. Daniela clarified that people will consider you fluent not if you lack an accent, but if you speak clearly, accurately, and with a variety of vocabulary, enabling you to respond adequately based on the situation. You can aim to reduce your accent, but the goal is not to speak exactly like a native speaker. Maria Fernandez also advised learners to aim at clarity rather than perfection. As long as your accent is clear and you avoid certain pronunciation mistakes, you'll communicate easily. We should also remember that you do not need perfect English to be successful. Experts confirm that you can be less than 100% fluent and still succeed in many situations. The focus should be on progress, not perfection. Fluency is really about communicating your ideas clearly and naturally. Myth 3. You can learn English fast or you are too old to learn. Let's tackle the myths around speed and age. First, the idea that you can become fluent quickly. Natalie explained that fluency is highly subjective. You might be fluent in topics related to your everyday life, but you might be lost when talking about specialized topics like law. She defined fluency as flowing, speaking naturally without feeling stuck. And she reminds us that this takes a while. Daniela warns that if you are a beginner, there is no way to become fluent fast. You must study and practice a lot, and fluency will come over time. She urges students not to believe courses that promise fluency in a month, calling that a lie. Similarly, Profe Law states plainly that there are no shortcuts, and nobody becomes fluent in 3, 4, or 6 months. If you want fluency, you must study hard and practice all 4 skills, and that requires time. Experts at Northwest Career College concur, noting that expecting to be fluent overnight or in a few weeks is unrealistic. Learning any language is gradual, and acquiring the complete system of a language typically requires years of intensive study and practice. Focus on minor improvements over time, and your confidence will grow. Now, what about the worry that adults are too old? The misconception that one can only learn a new language at a very young age is invalid. Adults actually have the advantage of knowing how language works, which helps them understand grammar and vocabulary. Adults have cognitive maturity, which can aid progress. Oliver from the Easy English podcast confirms that adults often have the upper hand compared to children because they can study more effectively and in a structured way. Maria Fernandez, drawing on her 20 years of experience, has taught many students in their 60s and 70s who learned without trouble. She notes that their patience, determination, and common sense often make up for any memory changes. The key takeaway is clear. Age is not a barrier to learning English. A negative attitude is.
Myth 4. Methodology myths. Grammar, skills, and logic. Beyond the major anxiety-inducing myths, there are several myths about how we should learn. First, the belief that speaking is the only important skill. While speaking is often seen as the most crucial, reading, writing clear texts, and understanding what others say, listening, are all equally important. These 4 skills support each other and are vital in school, the workplace, and everyday life. Second, let's talk about grammar. Some people believe grammar is the most important thing, while others think you can skip grammar entirely. Maria Fernandez argues that to build even simple sentences, you need to know some grammar. If you skip it, you'll get confused and never become fluent. Learning grammar allows you to make quick progress and speak with confidence. However, Oliver points out that for beginners and intermediate learners, vocabulary is much more critical than grammar. Excessive focus on grammar can lead people to avoid speaking and other difficult tasks. The truth is that mastering grammar is key, but memorizing a textbook's worth of rules is not the only way. A balanced approach that combines explicit learning, studying rules, with implicit learning, picking up the language naturally, is the key to success. Finally, the myth that English is illogical and full of exceptions. This widespread misconception is often based on incomplete teaching. For instance, students are often taught that the letter S only says S. If they learn this, the 43% of the time that S says Z is mistakenly viewed as an exception. Experts from Logic of English argue that when we teach a more complete set of letter-sound correspondences, true exceptions become much less common. By combining 75 basic phonograms with 31 spelling rules, we can explain 98% of English words. For example, instead of relying on the famously flawed I before E except after C rule, knowing the sounds of the phonograms EI and IE is more effective and logical.
Myth 5. You must learn English alone, and apps guarantee fluency. Let's look at two final myths related to resources and community. First, the myth that you must learn English alone. While Maria Fernandez points out that she learned many languages on her own, Northwest Career College emphasizes that learning will be more fun and less stressful if you join a class, study with friends, or practice with native speakers. Having a support system helps you stay motivated and learn faster. Second, the belief that you can learn a language just by reading books and using apps. Profe Lau explains that language learning apps are great for beginners. Their goal is to get you from being a total beginner to an intermediate level, providing a foundation. You should not expect to become completely fluent with an app alone. Chelsea reminds us that you need a balance between input and output. Input is the raw information you receive, reading or listening. But to achieve fluency, you also need output, speaking or writing. Output reinforces your knowledge and connects the language in your brain with the movements of your body. And finally, remember that language learning does not have to be costly. Many effective ways to learn are cheap or free, such as using streaming services,
public libraries, which may offer free access to apps like Mango, seeking out local speech communities, or participating in language exchanges. We've covered 5 major areas of myths today. The moral of the story, as Prof. Lau wisely put it, is to just breathe. Inhale, exhale. You are on a language learning journey. Stop worrying so much and focus on learning. Remember what Chelsea urged. How can I improve my English? Do it. Do English. Do more English. Practice your speaking and listening every day. It doesn't matter if you make mistakes. Mistakes are necessary and reflect a natural developmental process in language acquisition. Focus on consistency, exposure, and confidence. I want to add that I believe it is helpful to learn from more than one source. You can use more than one textbook or study with more than one teacher online, which exposes you to different explanations, approaches, and forms of practice. If you are looking for structured study, Northwest Career College offers an extended ESL program to help students of any age and level achieve success. They emphasize that focusing on communication and culture can be just as important and satisfying as grammar. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope we gave you food for thought. Happy studies, everyone!